there if you get dry.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
We are going to give a little update on what we're involved in now. For those of you who weren't here at the Sunday School Hour, we just came back from Australia in January, and then we moved into Harrisburg. We really feel God calling us to work with the refugee people. And we've started that work, and my wife's going to give a little bit of an update, and then we have a few pictures to show on the screen.
Okay, good morning. First, I want to say a big thank you for everyone in the church here, for the support you have been to us through the years, and for giving to us financially and for your prayers. We appreciate that a lot, and without people like you, we couldn't be doing what we're doing. And we're just needy people like each one of you, and we need the Lord every day, and without Him we can't do anything, and we're not anything special people in any way, but we're just people that need Him, and we need your prayers. And the Lord has been good to us. He's been taking us some different places. And we came back from Australia, and transition time is never an easy time, even for people like us that have done it multiple times. But we do find the Lord being faithful, and He is certainly our refuge and our strength and our help in the different things we're going through. And in February, we moved down to Harrisburg, and we got an apartment there in like a big apartment complex. And we're surrounded with people from different nationalities, and there's especially a big population of Nepalese people. And so we're working on building relationships with the people around us. And we're also working with a resettlement organization. And Neil is doing voluntary work with resettlement, receiving the new families that are coming, and helping them get apartments set up, and with all kinds of practical issues that need to be done. And I'm teaching English, and that's also an inroad to get to know people. And a lot of the people that are in my classes, they are Muslim people, and right now they're observing the Ramadan. And it's very obvious that these people are in bondage, and we really pray that the Lord would open their hearts and break down those walls of lies and deception and lead them into truth. And these Nepalese people, most of them are Hindus, and they also worship a multitude of gods. And they are also steeped in Satan's deception. So we really need to pray that God will open the door, and that He will break down those lies, and that they will be open to the gospel. And I just want to show you some pictures of some of the things we're doing there. They're coming up. Okay, so this is a young Nepalese couple that we got to know, and they're actually believers. So we're getting to know them and build relationship with them. And they're a really sweet couple, and they invite us to their house, and we get to eat their food, and it's a lot of fun to get to know them. Next one. And this is another family that's our neighbors, and I've been teaching English to the lady, and we had them over for a meal, and we're getting to know them better. They are Hindu people. Next. And then we went to a Nepalese wedding, and they're all beautifully dressed up in their Nepalese costumes. So. And I go for walks every morning around our neighborhood there, and then every morning I meet this same group of people, and it's almost like you feel you're in Nepal rather than being in America when you meet neighbors like that out on your walk. But they hardly speak any English at all, just a few random words. So we just greet each other. And the other morning, they were happy to pose for the picture. And they're really sweet that you can build up a little bit of relationship in spite of the language barriers.
Okay, so that was the pictures we had for those. I do have some more pictures from my trip to Nepal, but before that, I would like to share with you some things from the Bible, the Old Testament, 2 Kings. So if you have your Bibles, we can turn to 2 Kings chapter 18. And Roger was just mentioning a few minutes ago about America turning away from the one true God, and about people worshiping other things. And, imagine God's chosen people back in the Old Testament were doing just that, turning away from Him. And I'm going to read a few verses in chapter 16, and I'll just start in verse 1. 2 Kings 16, verse 1. It says, "In the 17th year of Pekah, the son of Remaliah, Ahaz, the son of Jotham, king of Judah, began to reign." So it's talking about a time in Israel's history where years ago the kingdom had been separated. You had the 10 northern tribes, and then you had the 2 southern tribes. And the northern tribes, they had this leader called Pekah, who was the son of Remaliah. And then the southern kingdom, who started out with Solomon's son, this king became king. His name was Ahaz, the son of Jotham. So you had these 2 kingdoms, and we're going to talk about Ahaz. Now, the southern kingdom of Judah was, generally speaking, more godly, more following the law of Moses, the true God, more than the northern kingdom. But even the southern kingdom started going wayward, and they went rebellious and rebelled against the God of Israel. And so let's read in verse 2. Ahaz was 20 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem 16 years. Now just stop, pause for a moment. He was 20 years old. I have a daughter that just turned 21. But imagine getting a president of the United States that's 20 years old. Imagine that. Now, some of you might be saying, yeah, they won't do any worse than the ones we've had. Now, I do believe a 20-year-old can have an awful lot of sense to rule country if he's doing it God's way. Amen. So he might have more sense than a 60-year-old if he's doing it God's way. But here we have a guy ruling this southern kingdom at 20 years old. But now read. He reigned 16 years, and he did not do what was right in the eyes of the Lord his God, as his father David had done. So now this is bad. He did not do what was right. Verse 3. But he walked in the ways of the kings of Israel. He even, listen to this, he even burned his son as an offering according to the detestable practices of the nations whom the Lord drove out before the people of Israel. Verse 4, and he sacrificed and made offerings on the high places and on the hills and under every green tree. Some translations say every spreading tree. Every huge big tree that was around, they offered sacrifices and did offerings in these locations. Now I want to tell you here, when I was in Nepal back in September, that is exactly how it was. On every high hill you could look around. I have some pictures in a little while. There will be a shrine, a temple place, and there will be a place where people went in and they did sacrifices. They would offer flowers and little offerings and things to these gods that were not gods at all. Wood, hay, and stubble. And there was the Hindu religion. It's not just 1, 2, 5, or 10 gods. The Hindus worship millions of gods. They actually have millions of gods. So you go out this parking lot, you see a big tree over there. That could be some god. There's a spirit living there. And you better pay your respects, because if you don't, something bad's going to happen to you. And if your son got sick, it's probably because yesterday you went past one of these gods and did not pay your due respects. They live in fear. That's how the Hindu religion is. And then in town, there's trees, and then any big tree, they will have a place of sacrifice and offering at these trees. And that's exactly what was going on here at the nation of Israel. God's chosen people, the God that brought them out of Egypt, performed these miracles, saved them miraculously, did all these wonderful things for the people, and they turn away and they worship gods of stone and gold and stubble. Now turn over to chapter 17. Chapter 17, just over the page. And verse 8, we won't read all of it, but verse 8 says, They walked in the customs of the nations whom the Lord drove out before the people of Israel, and in the customs that the kings of Israel had practiced. So now the southern kingdom is following the northern kingdom, you know. And the people of Israel did secretly against the Lord their God things that were not right. They built for themselves high places in their towns, from watchtower to fortified city. They set up for themselves pillars and asherim on every high hill and under every green tree. And there they made offerings on all the high places, as the nations did, whom the Lord carried away before them. And they did wicked things, provoking the Lord to anger. And they served idols, of which the Lord had said to them, You shall not do this. Verse 13, Yet the Lord had warned Israel and Judah by every prophet and by every seer, saying, Turn from your evil ways and keep my commandments and my statutes in accordance with all the law that I commanded your fathers, and that I sent to you by my servants the prophets. Verse 14, But they would not listen. They were stubborn as their fathers had been, and they did not believe in the Lord their God. Imagine this, God's chosen people, and they're turning from Him. They refuse to turn back, even though He sent prophets, preachers, teachers. He sent them all to the people, and they rejected them. They even stoned and killed some of them. And they would not follow the Lord their God on every high hill and under every spreading tree. You know, we have that in other places in the world. Like I said, Nepal, if we don't reach these people with the gospel in Harrisburg, they already have plans to start a shrine down in Harrisburg so that they can go and worship these false gods. The Muslims already have mosques in Mechanicsburg area where they're going to kneel down to Allah and the Prophet Muhammad. These people need the Lord Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Now I don't suppose there's anyone here today that would go home in their house and have a shrine in their backyard and go bow down to it. I don't believe there's anyone here today that do that. But you know, folks,